Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, I am the Frozen Gamer, and tonight I want to talk to you guys about the upcoming potential for PlayStation games coming to PC. So, there's a rumor going around, and it seems to be pretty much confirmed, although not officially, that Horizon Zero Dawn is going to make its way over to PC. Now, this is kind of surprising. When we look at Sony's history with releasing games on PC, so far the only PlayStation exclusives that have come over, at least that I'm aware of, have been games made by like Quantic Dream. Specifically games like Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human. All great games. And we know that later this year we also have Death Stranding coming over to PC, which at least currently is a PlayStation exclusive for consoles. So the thing about Horizon Zero Dawn coming over is that it is very specifically a first-party PlayStation exclusive, which kind of brings up the question. I mean, yeah, it'll have been over 3 years, because it's been almost 3 years since the game came out on PS4 in the first place, but it will have been over 3 years from the time that it released on PS4 to the time it comes to PC. But then that brings up the question of what might happen with other first-party games. Is it possible that other things could also come over? Personally, I would love to see games like God of War brought over. I haven't ever talked about it on this channel because the last time I played, or when I played through it, by that point I wasn't actually doing anything with the channel. But that was an amazing game, and one thing that would have made it even more amazing is 60 frames per second or higher. Now, I know that the PS4 Pro version could do 60 frames per second. I don't know if it actually maintained it all the time or not, but either way, it was still a lot better that way. But I wasn't about to go buy a PS4 Pro for one game to play a little bit better. So the fact that, the idea that God of War could potentially be brought over and be 60 frames per second, 100 frames per second, 200 frames per second. For those of you who haven't experienced the high frame rates that PC can potentially offer depending on the game, it completely changes the way that you look at games. Now, I'm not saying that it necessarily ruins all lower frame rate games. I think it really just kind of depends on the game. To give an example of what I mean, Destiny 1 was entirely 30 frames per second on all consoles. That's all it was. It never got above that. And when I switched over to PC, at the time, all I had was a monitor with a 60 Hz refresh rate, meaning that the max I could reach was 60 frames per second. But it made such a massive difference that when I went back to PS4 after playing the initial beta of Destiny 2, on PC, I found that that frame rate difference was very jarring. And in more recent times, I've gotten a much higher refresh rate monitor, doing well over 100 frames per second. Sometimes, I think the max I can do with my video card is 144. I'm not sure if I've reached that. I know I've gotten above 120 regularly, but the difference in the frame rate is it just makes things so much smoother. It makes gameplay so much smoother. And you'll see some gameplay in this video of Destiny 2, but I believe YouTube caps out at 60 frames per second, so you probably won't get to see anything higher than that, even though the gameplay that you'll be seeing is higher frame rate. But the main thing is that when it comes to just how it affects gameplay, it really just makes things smoother. It makes movements more fluid. Initially, it can be a little much to handle, but once you get used to it, after playing for, I think it took me maybe 10 minutes going from 60 to 120 frames per second to actually get used to the difference. And once you get used to it, it's just night and day difference. So much so that I cannot or rather, it would be very difficult to go back to playing Destiny 2 on PS4. But the other thing is that, like another example, and this one is one where I actually was able to get used to it a little bit more, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Now, originally I played through it on PC. I've used some of my gameplay footage in some of my videos before, and I was playing around 60 frames per second. It typically, I think, would be more like an average of about 55 because of it not being the best optimized for PC, but it was still significantly faster than what you get on consoles. But when I got the Switch version of Black Flag, which I thoroughly enjoyed, I actually ended up 100%ing it, along with all of its DLC, which I hadn't previously played. That 30 frames per second was really hard to get used to initially. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that I had just spent money on it, I almost would not have wanted to play it. But at the same time, it was like, okay, I can get used to this. I can enjoy the game because it's a great game and play it anywhere, which obviously I can't do with my PC, at least. You could do it with a laptop, but my experience with laptop gaming has not always been the most consistent. Anyway, going back to the original point, the original part of playing PlayStation games on PC, the idea of bringing a game like God of War, like Horizon Zero Dawn, which does seem to be coming, the Infamous series, bringing those over to PC, even if it was 3 years after each game's release, meaning like if God of War came out in 2021 on PC, I have a feeling that I might not buy a PS5. And that's something that's almost hard for me to say, because I bought every single Sony console, at least not every iteration of every console. So like and I still own them. I still have my original PS1, I have a PS2 Slim, I have a PS3 Slim, I have a PSP, I think it's a 2000 model, I have my PS Vita 1000, and I have my original PS4. And I love them. I love the franchises, even though it wasn't really until around the PS3 generation that I started getting into more franchises, because before that it was more Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts were the reasons I stuck with PlayStation and got the consoles. But like, I found there are so many great franchises within PlayStation. They're first-party franchises. They have some really great ones in there, and it's what's made me want to keep buying PlayStation. But I'm at a point now where I have so many games to play. Even with having significantly reduced the amount of games I buy, I have so many games to play. And if I had to wait for 3 years for each game, get the game 3 years later, but not have to buy a PlayStation 5, and then be able to play a better version on PC, I could get a PS5 controller to play it if I really want to. I think that it would be really hard to be motivated to stick with PlayStation. And so I'm really truly hoping that Sony's not going to bring over a bunch of their franchise games. Because if they do that, I might just lose my incentive to be part of the PlayStation ecosystem anymore. And it might sound kind of like a little too Nintendo fanboy of me to say that I would do that with PlayStation, but I wouldn't necessarily do it with Nintendo. But the main thing is that you're also comparing the two different consoles. Like, if PS5 is basically just going to be a powerful PC. And as it stands right now, with recent upgrades I've made to my PC, the only thing that will be inferior in mine is my GPU. And I'm planning to upgrade that to pretty much top of the line, which would mean that basically a PS5 would be irrelevant unless it's specifically for first-party games. because I don't buy third-party games on console anymore unless it's like Switch, and even then only if it's something that I feel would be a good fit for portable play. So, I mean, it's just really hard to say whether or not that's something that I feel like I could actually justify spending the extra money on a PS5 when I've already spent as much money as I have on my PC, and when I can get games and play them better, higher frame rates, and everything else. Not worried about 4K because I just don't care about 4K. I care more about frame rates than I do about resolution. I'm happy with 1080p. So it's one of those things where it's really hard to say. And part of me really hopes that, while there's part of me that wants them to bring over first-party games to PC besides Horizon Zero Dawn, the other part of me hopes that they never do. Or that if they do, it's so far down the line that by that point I already have a PS5. But of course, even with that, right now we've seen nothing of the PS5. Like, we have a basic idea of some of the features it's going to have, but until Sony actually reveals the PS5, says what's launching with it, I need something significant to convince me that it's worth buying. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. Any of you who actually listen to this video, let me know what it is that how you would feel if Sony started bringing over their first-party games to PC. Are you in a similar position to me where you feel that PC really is the best way to play games, and if the games came over to PC from PlayStation, even if it was late, you would be willing to wait so that you could play it better? Or are you someone who's just going to be PS5 no matter what? Going to keep buying Sony consoles no matter what? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Until next time, this has been The Frozen Gamer, and I'll talk to you later.